The man from holding cell B. I knew the man from the holding cell had found me when I saw the note under my dorm room door. But what scared me most wasn't that he knew where I lived. It was what he had written on it. Cell B was quieter with you in it. This happened during my sophomore year of college, and I still hate telling the beginning of it because it makes me sound like an idiot. I wasn't arrested for anything serious, but that doesn't make the night any less humiliating. A few friends and I had gone to a bar near campus after finals week. I was 19, not supposed to be drinking, and mostly there because everyone else was going. Around midnight, two guys started arguing near the pool table. One of them shoved my friend shoved back, and suddenly the whole corner of the bar turned into chaos. I didn't throw a punch, I didn't break anything, but I made the mistake of grabbing my friend and trying to pull him away right as a bouncer rushed in. From the outside, I'm sure it looked like I was part of it. Police were already outside because someone had called about underage drinking, and within 10 minutes, I was standing on the sidewalk with zip ties around my wrists, trying to explain to an officer that I had not started anything. He didn't care. Because it was late on a Friday night, and because I was technically underage inside the bar, they brought me in with a few others. I remember sitting in the back of the cruiser staring at the neon sign through the window, thinking there had to be some mistake. I kept waiting for the moment where someone would say, "All right, kid, go home." That moment didn't come. At the station, they processed me, took my phone, my wallet, my shoelaces, everything. I had never been in trouble before, not real trouble. The worst thing I had ever done was skip a morning class. So when they handed me a thin county-issued shirt and told me I'd be held until morning, my brain didn't really accept it at first. Holding cell B was small, bright, and freezing. There were 6 of us inside when I got there. 2 guys were asleep on the benches. 1 was pacing. 1 kept asking when he could make another phone call. And in the far corner sat a man who looked completely calm. He was older than everyone else in the cell, maybe mid-40s. Medium build, shaved head, gray hoodie under the county shirt, and eyes that made too much contact. Not aggressive contact. Not angry. Just steady, like he was reading something printed on your face. He introduced himself as Warren. At first, Warren seemed like the least scary person in the room. He spoke quietly, almost politely. When another guy started mouthing off at me for looking nervous, Warren told him to leave me alone. He asked what I was in for, and because I was scared and stupid and desperate to seem normal, I told him the short version. Bar fight. I wasn't really involved. He smiled and said, "Wrong place, wrong time." I nodded. He said, "That's how they get most people." For the first hour, I was almost grateful he was there. He told me not to ask too many questions, not to stare at anyone, and not to look like I was waiting to be saved. He explained little things that made the place feel less confusing. Where to stand when the door opened. How long breakfast usually took. Why the lights never really went off. I remember thinking I got lucky. That was the first mistake. The first uneasy detail came when he asked what dorm I lived in, not if I lived on campus, not what school I went to. "What dorm are you in?" I looked at him and said, "Why?" He smiled like the question amused him. Just making conversation. I told him I lived off campus. That was a lie. His smile widened slightly. "Smart," he said. "Don't give people too much." After that, I stopped talking as much. But Warren didn't. He kept asking things in this casual, lazy way, like he wasn't really interested in the answers. What major was I? Did my parents live nearby? Did I have a girlfriend? Which bar had I been at? Did I usually go there on Fridays? I gave vague answers. Sometimes I shrugged. Sometimes I pretended not to hear him. Then he said, "You look like a Tyler. My name is Tyler." I had not told him that. I stared at him, and for a second, the room seemed to get quieter. He smiled and said, "Relax. Lucky guess." I wanted to believe that. I really did. There are a lot of Tylers. Maybe I looked like one. Maybe someone had said my name during booking. Maybe he overheard an officer. That was the explanation I forced myself to accept, because the alternative made my stomach turn. Eventually, they moved 2 of the other guys out, and the cell got quieter. The pacing man fell asleep, sitting upright. The guy near the door stopped asking for phone calls. Warren stayed awake. I tried to sleep, but I could feel him looking at me. At some point, I opened my eyes and saw him sitting on the opposite bench, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. He said, "Your mother's a nurse, right?" I didn't answer. He tilted his head. "No, hospital administrator, something like that." My whole body went cold. My mom worked at a hospital, not as a nurse, in administration. I sat up and said, "How do you know that?" Warren leaned back like I had overreacted. "People talk. No one here knows me." He shrugged. "Everybody is knowable." That sentence stuck in my head because it didn't sound like something someone says by accident. It sounded rehearsed, like a belief. I moved to the opposite end of the bench and stayed awake until they finally let me call my dad in the morning. He sounded angry, but not in the loud way, the quiet kind, the disappointed kind. He told me he was coming and that I was lucky the charge was minor. When they released me later that afternoon, I didn't look back at Warren. I just signed whatever they told me to sign, collected my things, and walked out into daylight, feeling like I had been underwater for 12 hours. My dad drove me back to campus. "The whole ride," I said. "Almost nothing." He thought I was ashamed because of the arrest, and I was. But mostly, I kept hearing Warren's voice. "Everybody's knowable." For the next 2 days, nothing happened. That was the false safety moment. I convinced myself Warren was just a creepy guy who had overheard my name and guessed the rest. Maybe my college sweatshirt had a hospital fundraiser logo on it. Maybe I had mentioned my mom without remembering. Maybe stress made everything feel bigger than it was. Then I got the follow request. It came from an account with no profile picture, no posts, and a username made of random letters and numbers. My Instagram was private, so I ignored it. 10 minutes later, a message request appeared. I opened it. It was a photo of the holding cell, not from online, not from a news article. Holding cell B. Same white wall, same metal bench, same scratched corner where I had sat. And in the photo, someone had circled my seat in red. Under the photo, the message said, "You forgot to say goodbye." I blocked the account immediately. Then I unblocked it long enough to screenshot everything, because panic and common sense were fighting inside my head, and common sense barely won. I sent the screenshots to my dad. He called me within 30 seconds and told me to report it to campus security and the police. I didn't want to. I know that sounds stupid, but after being arrested, the last place I wanted to go was another police station. I was embarrassed. I felt like no one would take me seriously. I imagined them asking why I was in the holding cell in the first place, and I hated that part of the story more than the fear. So I told my dad I would handle it. I didn't. 3 nights later, I came back to my dorm after studying at the library. It was around 11 p.m. My building required keycard access, and there was usually someone at the front desk. That night, the desk was empty. Not unusual. The RA on duty was probably doing rounds. I took the elevator to the 4th floor and walked down the hallway toward my room. Halfway there, I saw something on the floor. A folded piece of paper had been slid under my door. I stopped walking. For a few seconds, I just stood there staring at it. My first thought was that it was from my roommate, but he was home for the weekend. My second thought was that it was a maintenance notice, but those were always printed and taped to the door. This was folded by hand. I picked it up carefully and opened it. The handwriting was neat, almost delicate. Selby was quieter with you in it. I don't remember unlocking my door. I just remember being inside my room with my back against the wall, breathing too fast, holding that note like it was something alive. I called my dad first, then campus security. This time, I told them everything. The holding cell, Warren, my name, my mom, the Instagram message, the note. Campus security came to my room, took a report, and checked the hall cameras. That was when it got worse. The camera at the end of the hallway had been covered. Not broken, covered. Someone had placed a strip of black tape over the lens, sometime between 10:12 and 10:18 p.m. The stairwell camera showed a man in a baseball cap and dark jacket entering from the side door at 10:09. He kept his face down, but I knew the way he moved. It was Warren. Campus security asked if I was sure. I said yes. They contacted local police. Local police contacted the county jail. And that was when we found out something that made no sense. Warren had not been released. According to the jail record, the man I knew as Warren had been transferred to another county facility the morning after I left. He was never released into town. He was still in custody when the note appeared under my door. The officer on the phone suggested maybe another person delivered it for him. That was logical. That was worse, because that meant Warren either had someone outside helping him, or he had told someone exactly where to find me. But how? I had never given him my dorm. I had lied and said I lived off campus. I asked if Warren could have seen my paperwork. The officer said, inmates don't get access to that. I asked if he could have heard my address during booking. The officer said, my campus address wasn't read out loud. Nobody had a good answer. My dad drove to campus that night and took me home. I stayed there for a week and switched to online classes temporarily. The school changed my dorm access card. They moved me to a different room in a different building. I made all my social media private and removed my last name from everything I could. For almost a month, nothing happened. Then I got a letter. No return address. It came to my new dorm. Not my old dorm. My new one. Inside was a copy of the same photo from holding cell B, but this time there was something different about it. In the original message, my seat had been circled in red. In this version, someone had circled a bench across from it. Warren's seat. Underneath, he had written, "You lied about living off campus." I took the letter straight to campus police. They contacted the county again. Warren had been released by then, but he had missed his check-in. His listed address was fake. The phone number on file didn't work. No one seemed to know where he had gone. For a while, I stopped feeling like a person and started feeling like a location someone was trying to solve. That's the only way I can explain it. I changed my routine constantly. I stopped walking alone at night. I slept with a chair against my door even though I knew it probably wouldn't do much. Every time someone knocked, my chest tightened. Every time someone looked at me too long in public, I wondered if they knew him. The last thing happened 2 months later. I was in the dining hall with a friend when my phone buzzed with a notification from a new message request. Different account, no photo, no posts. I almost deleted it without opening it, but I didn't. The message was a video, 5 seconds long. It showed the outside of my mother's hospital, not the front entrance, the staff parking lot. The camera was pointed at a row of cars, and for the first 4 seconds, nothing happened. Then a hand entered the frame and pointed to my mom's car. The message underneath said, "Everybody is knowable." My dad went to the police with me that same day. This time, they took it seriously immediately. Maybe because it involved my mother. Maybe because there was a pattern now. Maybe because I was no longer the scared college kid who had just been arrested and didn't know how to explain himself. They never found Warren, at least not that they told us. My mom changed her parking routine. The hospital increased security for a while. I finished the semester mostly online and later transferred schools. I know that might sound extreme, but I couldn't live in that dorm anymore. I couldn't walk past the side door without seeing the hallway camera covered in black tape. The arrest charge was eventually reduced and cleared after community service. On paper, that night became a dumb mistake I learned from, but it never felt that simple. Because the real punishment wasn't court or my dad's disappointment or the embarrassment of being processed. It was the fact that one stupid night put me in a locked room with someone who looked at me like I was a puzzle. And somehow, he kept solving pieces of my life. I still don't know how he knew my name before I told him. I don't know how he knew about my mother. I don't know who delivered the note if he was still in custody. And I don't know how he found my new dorm. But every once in a while, I'll get a follow request from a blank account. No photo. No posts, random letters and numbers. I never accept them. I never message back. But sometimes, before I block them, I check the profile. And once, just once, the bio had only 3 words: holding cell B,